Australia, it really is a land of extremes. One day it can be beautiful and tranquil. The next day all hell can break loose. It can be hostile, even deadly.
Australia is a continent of such size and diversity that death and injury confront humans in more ways than any other country on Earth. At its worst, its weather is ferocious.
Totally unbelievable. It was just one hell of a ski.
Semi-submersible glass bottom boat, and that weighed 6 tonne, blowing 6 kilometres across land up on the beach.
Its terrain is harsh and cruel. While there are more deadly creatures, both on the land and in the sea, than anywhere else in the world, even seemingly harmless animals have their dark side.
I knew that he had put some venom into my system.
A cornered cassowary is very aggressive. If I was to threaten his chicks, he would certainly go me.
While creatures that are known to kill can strike at any second. Know this land, and it is possible to survive.
This is damn tough.
Confront its wildlife and risk life and limb.
Well, look at that. He had me, but now I've got him.
This then is the mission of our series, to seek out those places that are both remote and forbidding, to track down wildlife that is dangerous, even deadly, and to meet those characters, those hardy men and women who've learned to survive with both.
The waters off northwestern Australia hide many secrets. For swimmers, it's a place of refuge from the sticky tropical heat. For professional divers, there's a rich bounty below the waves. The glorious white pearl. But for both divers and swimmers alike, there lurks in these waters something surprisingly venomous.
Any month of the year, but particularly between November and June, Australia's most northerly waters attract a deadly creature. Now this is the Irukandji jellyfish, an extremely small body but very long tentacles which are covered with stingers that can be potentially lethal.
Such is the problem, officials at Broome have ordered that their popular Cable Beach be netted for Irukandji jellyfish.
Our main season is in the wet season.
Jason O'Donnell is the first lifesaver in Australia to sweep the beach for Irukandjis.
In conjunction with Surf Lifesaving Queensland, James Cook University in Queensland and the Broome Shire Council, we're sampling the water twice a day to collect data for researchers in Queensland, and also helps us determine a time of year when the stingers are more prevalent. It is a sampling method, so it's a huge sea out there, and it's sometimes like finding a needle in a haystack. So if we find a lot of them in our sample, we'll go out and do another sample in case we do find them. Then if we do find Irukandji, we then close the beach. And the 2 following days after that, we put more warning signs out. That allows us to hopefully prevent someone from getting stung, and that's really the name of the game, to be proactive about it.
Those sweeps were started after surfer Mark Longhurst had a very nasty encounter.
Bit of a cyclone brewing off the coast, had a big swell crew, so managed to get off early from work and shoot down for a quick surf. And there's probably about 60 people out making the most of it, and been out in the water for about 15 minutes enjoying a well-earned surf. When all of a sudden a jellyfish went up the back of my board shorts and stung me on the right thigh.
Researching the Irukandjis is Dr. Phil Alderslade.
The sting is quite mild, so the people didn't even realise that they'd been stung by a jellyfish at that stage. The patient brushes up against one of these things, gets a cursory sting. Only a minute amount of venom is injected because the animal is so small, but that's enough to cause very serious problems in the patient.
I originally thought it must have been a big box jellyfish by the severity of the sting. Couldn't see any big whip marks typical of the big boxies, so breathed a sigh of relief and thought, well, it's not a box jellyfish. Can't be an Irukandji because I've never heard of Irukandjis hurting so much when they sting. Possibly some of the severity of the toxicity of the sting was the fact that the jellyfish was caught under the board shorts and just sitting there and envenomating for about 15 minutes.
Stings can occur from the tentacles, but also from on the bell of the jellyfish as well. The bell has little tiny dots on it. If you put those under a microscope, you can see they're actually made up of many, many stinging cells. So you have one type of stinging cell on there and different types that are in the tentacles. Now the irukandji name comes from a tribe of Aboriginal people that lived in the Palm Cove area north of Cairns. When the first jellyfish, this species here, was found that caused this syndrome, it picked up the name irukandji. But we now know the number of different box jellyfish and other jellyfish which can cause this syndrome, and they all tend to pick up the name irukandji.
There's two types of irukandji stingers in there. One's a really small one, which is the Cricero Barnes eye, after Dr. Barnes. The other one, we're still trying to work out if it gives irukandji syndrome. It's down in Toxology Lab in Melbourne at the moment, but we're pretty sure it does.
Dr. Barnes, he actually found the animal and tested it on himself and his son to see whether the animals they found were actually the culprits. He said that he'd prefer to get stung by Chironex, which is the big box jellyfish known for many, many fatalities, rather than the trauma that he went through being stung by this little fellow.
About 10 minutes after the sting, I started getting really tight in the chest, so I paddled back into the beach with difficulty to breathe. And that was about when I realised that, gee, something's going on here.
People have thought that they've had the bends, people have thought they've been having gastric traumas. And then this pain starts to spread into the abdomen.
And when I got to the beach and tried to stand up, had excruciating pain through my lower back and my neck, and found it hard to walk, doubling up with pain. Felt like my chest was just caving in.
This is just accompanied by things like a massive headache, a huge feeling of doom that the end of the world is nigh, nausea, tremor, racing heart, extremely high blood pressure.
By the time I got to the top of the stairs, I was screaming in agony. I was gasping for breath, and it was a battle between having the energy to scream in agony and actually take a breath to keep going. I kept going and made it to my car. Tried to pick up a mobile phone to phone somebody and couldn't coordinate any of my body to dial the numbers. Thankfully, a young guy came up to see if I was okay and explained to him that I'd been stung, which by this time with the symptoms that were coming on I expected was an irukandji. So he drove me to the hospital, which was about a 15-minute drive, and the whole time I was in the car driving to the hospital I was envisaging lying in the back of the car, suffocating, not breathing, and nobody knowing that I'm suffocating and not being able to do anything about it. The driver trying to get to the hospital as quick as he could.
You have to put people into intensive care and inject them with strong opiates to try and cure them.
Because my blood pressure was so high, they administered morphine immediately with no effect, and they kept administering morphine to try and get some relief from the pain, and by the time I drank the hospital dry morphine, it still had no effect.
So there is a relatively new treatment being tried now, which is an infusion of magnesium sulphate, which is seems to be fixing a lot of the problems.
And with the amount of drugs that they put into me over the course of a number of hours, they eventually had to induce me into a coma to keep all my systems working because of the amount of drugs that my body was taking, with very little effect to the symptoms of the sting. And the Royal Flying Doctor flew me to Perth, admitted to Sir Charles Gardner Hospital into the intensive care, still on life support, and I was unconscious for 2 to 3 days. Once I came conscious, I was in hospital for another 3 days before I managed to convince the doctor to discharge me, and then I stayed in Fremantle for another week, working up the energy to walk and get mobile enough to fly back to Broome. It's something that I've been exposed to for quite a while, being involved in the pearling industry, and our pearl divers get stung every season by irukandjis.
Brought a bloke over from our sister ship there one day, and he was convulsing in pain, actually rising off the deck of the boat and actually sort of throwing himself into the gunnel and laying back down again. We brought him onto the deck of the mothership and sort of showered him up, and about 30 milligrams of morphine later he was laying comfortably in his bunk. But the actual traumatic of the ordeal was quite horrendous to watch there actually, and it's sort of not hard to see why these guys actually get a feeling of impending doom.
Since being stung, I've learned a lot more about them. They're an amazing creature. They're not like the typical jellyfish that I always envisage is just drifting around the ocean with the currents, and if you're unlucky enough to bump into one, well, so be it. These things have got 4 eyes, 360-degree vision. They come in with a rising tide into the shallows, and then they hunt in the falling tide in the shallows. and they can actually see their prey and hunt it a bit like a trawler would. When I swim in the areas that we're at high risk from them, I wear a full-length stinger suit now.
Full range stinger suit will cover the majority of your body, so you're going to reduce the risk of about 80%. These are just little booties that I wear, and I also wear some gloves of similar material because that's going to protect more of my body as well. The treatment for these is vinegar, and lots of it when you first get stung. What the vinegar does, it doesn't relieve any pain, but it neutralises the stinging cell from re-stinging you.
I didn't bring any vinegar to the beach with me. Possibly if I had got out of the water as soon as I got stung and applied vinegar to the site, the severity of the sting may not have been as bad as what it was.
Don't rub sand on them, that's very important. The old sand is definitely not the go. Just vinegar and lots more vinegar.
Despite the fact I've had 15 wet seasons in Broome and I know the dangers of box jellyfish here and that you really should swim with stinger suits, or not swim at all, but I didn't take any of those precautions, so I took the risk and had the unlucky incidents of running into one.
Ahead, a near-death experience in a blizzard.
We've got to get out, and I didn't know what he was talking about.
Oh, you'd only have to get a fraction of a milligram out of one of these things and you'd be dead as a doornail.
And the snake strike that went terribly wrong.
Nowhere are Australian weather conditions more brutal than here in the snow. The temperature can drop to way below zero. The winds can gust to up to 200 kilometres an hour. And it's these very conditions that generate the most gripping of survival stories.
There are few scenes more placid and tranquil than a snow-covered landscape. Every June, good falls transform the Australian Alps that straddle New South Wales and Victoria. From the tip of Australia's highest peak, Mount Kosciuszko, across the high country plains, here spreads a wilderness so vast that herds of wild brumbies still run free. But when the winds rise and the temperatures fall, the snowfields become a dangerous destination. As the blizzards intensify, visibility falls. When the air itself turns the colour of snow, many humans lose their way. In these menacing conditions, many perish.
It's a great environment, but yeah, absolutely it can kill, as we've seen. I mean, there's record to show that it kills. There's huts up there that have been put there for people to use as shelter. And some huts have been put there because they've been a testament or, I guess, a gesture by people who have lost people and have died.
John Shivers is an ambulance officer with a difference. The snowmobile is his ambulance.
It's an amazing country in terms of broadness of extremes of weather. And the one thing with the snow, though, that I always think is that if you're warm, you can find shade usually, and get a bit cool. But in the cold, if you haven't got the right gear and you get cold and you get wet, then obviously hypothermia is a huge risk. And hypothermia, it'll kill you.
Constable Chris Ryder faced terror in Australia's snow country.
I was out last season, I was out in a storm and we had 150 km/h winds at Seaman's Hut, and it was that bad where you were crawling along the ground, you physically couldn't walk into the wind, and if you stood up in the wind it blew you off your feet and you actually blew backwards towards in the direction the wind was blowing.
Constable Ryder has taken part in many rescues in the Australian Alps.
People caught out in those conditions, the temperatures get very, very cold very quickly, and people without the right conditions and clothing can die very, very quickly if they haven't got some skills to enable them to survive. Yeah, in those sort of extreme conditions, people break down very quickly. You normally can't see your hand in front of your face, and people tend to panic and either just walk around in circles a lot or build snow caves, or they just freeze. It happens very quickly out there, and we normally don't find out about it until it's too late.
One group that plays a critical role in rescues is the State Emergency Service. Today they're involved in a simulated rescue operation at Guthaga in the Snowy Mountains.
The situation is that yesterday Diane Patterson left this hut here at 4 p.m, just going on a bit of a ski. She's about 50 years old, 160 centimetres tall. She was wearing a purple fleece, and she's been said to be a novice skier, and she's got new skis, and so she just went out there for a bit, but she hasn't returned, and so we've been called in here to look.
Stephen McMahon is in charge. He's dispatching volunteers to try and find and rescue the missing skier.
We're conducting a search with about 8 people on snowshoes and 3 on skis, going off in the direction she was last seen going. We'll be spaced out in a line 5 metres apart so that we can be sure that we cover the area effectively.
20 hours have passed since Diane vanished. Rescuers dread that she may be partially or even totally covered by the heavy blanket of overnight snow.
For the inexperienced and the people without the right gear, it's lethal. It's hypothermia, of course, and just the conditions. It's dangerous enough for the people searching for people lost in the snow. So if you go out there and ignoring the weather conditions, then you're in a lot of trouble.
David Whitfield is supervising today's operation. He knows Australian conditions can be the most threatening on the planet.
Actually, Australia in some ways is more dangerous than Europe because it can rain and you get wet, and then it can go to -6 quite quickly. So the combination of being wet and caught out in cold weather it's lethal. It's what people die of.
More and more hours pass as the searchers probe the valley north of the hut from where Diane set out for a day of pleasure.
Steve, I think I can see someone.
Suddenly, in a heavily wooded creek bed, her body is sighted.
How do you feel?
Oh, my leg hurts.
Which leg? This one here?
No, the other one.
The bottom leg?
Be careful, it hurts.
Okay, that's okay. So you just feel some people on your legs there?
Oh, be careful, it hurts.
Okay, we'll have you onto the thermarest soon. We'll keep you nice and warm.
Oh, careful, that's where it hurts. Oh, touch my leg.
Bend around.
You guys, we're going to need you to help move casually. Could you come in?
Just going to check the rest of your body, see if we can move you, okay? Roll.
Oh!
Roll down. Okay. Now Daniel, could you start...
Diane must be stabilised, made comfortable on a stretcher and moved out into the open for rescue by snow ambulance.
She was actually quite well off for someone staying overnight in the snow. Hypothermia sets in and can kill you if you're not warm enough, if your body energy is low enough, and also with an injury that can increase the chances of hypothermia because you've got bleeding and things like that going on.
Today, no one died, but many search and rescue operations end badly. These 4 young men perished inside a snow cave after setting out on a snowboarding trip from Thredbo. For 3 months, rescue teams searched in vain for them as their bodies lay trapped beneath a deadly white blanket of snow. And when the coroner finally gave his report into their deaths, it became clear how Australia's harsh winter conditions had taken their lives. So heavy was the snow, it covered and blocked the entrance to their snow cave. They died from accidental suffocation. Robbo Bennetts is a cross-country skier. He came perilously close to the same fate 4 years earlier, and in the same area those snowboarders died.
The conditions today are far from ideal, but the conditions during my experience snow camping back up here were absolutely terrible. They're the worst conditions I've ever experienced, and really it was quite unimaginable, the cold and the fierceness of the wind.
What Robbo was encountering was a full-on blizzard. Lost, he stopped skiing. To survive, he tried to erect his tent. The ferocity of the wind ripped the tent from his hands.
Unfortunately, I couldn't catch it. It disappeared into the greyness. I'd ran about possibly 40 metres or so. So I decided that the safest thing to do was to turn around and retrace my steps. As I was retracing my steps were filling with spindrift and disappearing.
In the bitter cold, without shelter, Robbo and his friend Alan desperately began to dig a snow cave. They selected a large snow drift.
This snow cave is very similar to the one that my buddy Alan and I found ourselves in during our big adventure.
Robbo failed to realise that he'd dug his cave into fresh snow so soft it wouldn't compact.
Snow that won't compact enough to hold tent pegs in the ground won't compact enough for snow caves.
The cave held firm at first. The hideaway seemed secure. It was not a good decision.
I was sound asleep when I heard Alan calling out. At first, his words didn't penetrate my consciousness, but he was saying, "We've got to get out, we've got to get out," and I didn't know what he was talking about.
While Robbo was sleeping, the snow cave started to collapse. Tons of snow pushed slowly down towards his face, threatening to crush and suffocate him.
I realised then that we had to get out straight away because we didn't know how fast the ceiling was collapsing and we didn't know how far it would collapse either.
They dragged themselves out to safety. Only because the blizzard was abating were they able to survive. But it was a very close call.
I think that we were lucky that we got out in the nick of time. If we hadn't have got out when we did, then we would have had all of this snow, a couple of metres snow, pressing right down on us, and possibly it would have been too hard to get out of the entrance to the snow cave.
Coming up, catching crocs to save lives.
Come on, Dave, you're going to be water skiing soon.
And the trials of an outback snake handler.
You okay? Oh, go back and have a look in the car first.
Kakadu, in the very north of the Northern Territory, is an ancient wilderness, 2 billion years old. Here all life depends on water. At first everything appears tranquil. Then the skies darken and the air fills with the thunder of 10,000 magpie geese as they lift off from imminent danger. Below, one of nature's most fearsome creatures, the saltwater crocodile. They can grow up to 6 metres and weigh over a tonne. Their ancestors dined on dinosaurs, while today they feast on the ample supply of birds. For humans, this is a place to be on guard.
There have been an increasing number of fatal attacks from crocs in recent years across northern Australia, but many of those attacks aren't fatal, and people suffer horrific injuries, quite often bad infections, even gangrene, when the crocs bite. Well, now research is underway to try to beat those infections.
At the forefront of that research is Australia's leading crocodile expert, Dr. Graham Webb.
After the Second World War, they were hunted all over the place and no one really was concerned about them. But during the 1970s and 80s, efforts to rebuild populations have really worked, and so they're coming back in a lot of areas. But as they come back, of course, they create enormous problems because some of the big crocs start eating people and causing the sorts of problems that originally were responsible for them being wiped out. We get crocodile attacks, but they're nowhere near the level they would be if we were all going around in poverty. We don't have to go and wash and swim in the rivers and cross the rivers in canoes and do this type of thing that really causes the problems. I've been attacked a couple of times, but the time when I did get bitten, we were collecting eggs in water about knee deep and trying to find a female. And suddenly I realised that she was in the water right under my legs. And so I turned around to tell everybody, look out, and bang, just real quick. That's not an attempt to eat me, it's an attempt to just remind me that I was in the wrong place and I should get out. That's not a feeding attack, that's a real get away from my nest type of thing. And it worked extremely well. These were the early days with croc bites, and of course it got infected and it must have taken 2 or 3 months to heal. The medicos have noted crocodile bites normally get really seriously infected, and there seems to be 2 elements on that. They have a lot of pretty serious bacteria on their teeth because they eat a lot of food that's decaying, but also when they bite, the jaws come together with just an enormous clap. If you get bitten on the finger even by a little crocodile like this, it feels like you've hit your finger with a hammer. That may often kill a bunch of the tissue around, so that even if you clean it all up, it still gets necrotic if you're not careful.
That attack and infection have resulted in a research project led by Dr. Adam Britton.
We should be okay.
He captures crocodiles to take scrapings from their teeth. It's dangerous work.
See if we can catch one of these guys, shall we? These crocodiles are used to being fed by jumping for chicken. If we splash the water here, we should get at least one of these crocodiles coming up here to expect to be fed. If we can get this guy interested in some food, he'll hold his head up like that, open his mouth, and then Dave's going to put the rope around the upper jaw. Pull it tight so that it locks on his upper jaw, and then we've got him. Okay. Come on, big fella. Got him. Okay, what we've got to do now is we've got to get him over to that spit of land.
You go with Jacob, I'll pass it through. A good size, 3.5, 4, I reckon. Considering it's mating season, he hasn't got too many bites on him and that. I mean, he hasn't really started fighting yet, he just wants to go away. We've got a bit of a problem here.
Come on, Dave, you're going to be water skiing soon. Tie it to the end of this, because then we can put some weight on it.
Just go now, quick.
Okay, got it.
Put it around the tree.
Yep.
All right, are you ready?
Yep, go.
Things we do to get him holding croc, eh?
Okay, we've just caught the biggest crocodile in this lagoon, so we have to be very careful with him. We're going to pull him out, then inject him in the tail with the immobilising agent. Wait 20 minutes, and then we can start working with him. The drug we use is called pancuronium bromide. It stops nerve impulses going from the brain to the muscles. So if the crocodile decides it wants to try and bite us, muscles will not respond. You have to be very careful using these drugs because you don't really want to inject yourself with them accidentally. So this needle just goes into this holding container. So you see we've got the needle sticking out at the end. Just screw this onto the end of the pole. I can get the needle into the crocodile without putting myself at risk. He's starting to get a bit fidgety now, so we've got to pull him out. You ready, Jacob? It's a bit heavy. Come on, Dave, pull.
Pull sideways first.
Okay, tighten it up. Pretty good. You got him?
Yeah. Come around behind me. No, behind.
Come on, big fella. Okay, other side. Quick. Jacob's going to touch him on the tail, so the needle hopefully won't disturb him. Okay, I just got it in successfully. So in 20 minutes, you should be starting to feel a bit sleepy. So now all we have to do is wait.
Just going to release this a bit, Jacob.
The rope that we've used on him is very thin. If he actually had enough tension on that rope, if he swung his head, it'd snap it like a piece of string. Even now, for the next 10 minutes, it's still going to be potentially dangerous. People who go into hospital who have been attacked by crocodiles, once they've treated the actual physical injury, they've got to try and combat the infection. So what we're going to do now, we'll take him out and we'll have a look at the kind of disgusting bacteria that's sitting around the base of his teeth.
Next, taking samples from the teeth of giant crocodiles.
Oh, it's pretty disgusting, actually.
And the deadliest of Australian snakes.
He holds enough venom in there to kill several hundred people. We're going to put this pipe in the back of his jaw so he can't close his mouth. That means I can work on his front teeth safely. Here we go. Okay. Okay. It's easy to imagine that if I actually had my entire arm in these jaws and they were to clamp down with a force of over a ton, not only would it break the bone here and here, but there's no way I'll be able to pull my arm out. If he starts spinning his body, there's nothing I can do. This arm's just going to come straight off. Once he's taken my arm off, then he'll have to eat that. He'd swallow that, and then he'd come back for the rest of me. But there's no way that even an animal of this size will be able to eat my entire body. I'm just too big, his stomach's too small. But he'd certainly try and take other parts of me. He'd take another arm, he might try to take my head, may try to take a leg, and if I wasn't able to get out of there, every probability is that he'd kill me. Now this guy's fairly big, he's over 4 meters. When he bites down very hard on something, these are the things that are penetrating the flesh, and they can even go down to the bone. They actually replace their teeth on a regular basis. And although this doesn't look particularly good to us, to the crocodile, it's really not a problem. He's a big, dominant animal, he's always fighting, so he's losing a lot of teeth. But he's still got enough teeth at any one time to be able to bite down on his prey and to be able to hold on to them. And in this case, if someone is attacked by a crocodile, then obviously it's the bacteria on the teeth and at the base of the teeth that are going to get driven into someone's flesh. Using this dental probe, I'm going to do a bit of dental work on this crocodile. Oh, it's pretty disgusting actually. He's got a lot of flesh here, which looks like it's rotting away in fact. So, I don't know if you can see that. This deposit here that will get driven into the all flesh if the crocodile were to bite you. Just a whole suite of bacteria in there. Now remember, the thing about this animal is he was born in captivity and he spent his entire life living in this lagoon in captivity. But what about the bacteria on the teeth of wild crocodiles? Is it the same as we'd find here, or is it different? And of course, to do that, we're going to have to go and catch a wild crocodile. Well, this is the Adelaide River, and it's actually home to one of the highest densities of saltwater crocodiles in the Northern Territory. What we're here to do tonight is to catch one of those animals. Catching crocodiles is a team effort, and the three of us are going to work as a team in order to try and catch a crocodile. We want to take a sample of bacteria from the teeth to see whether there's any difference, so that if anyone gets bitten by a wild crocodile, we can find out what kind of bacteria we're going to have to fight in their wound. They're both too small. Oh, missed completely. Unbelievable. Okay, got it. I think what we might do is get a second harpoon onto her. If this one comes out, we've lost her. Okay? This is your first crack with the harpoon, so try not to stick it in my foot, please. Here she comes. Hit her pretty hard in the back of the neck. That was in the back of the nuchal. You've got to get her in the skin. She's definitely not happy. Go. Got two into her now. There she is, quick. Yeah, get the light on there, self. Yeah. It's okay, we've got her. We're in a dangerous situation. She could bite us very easily, but we've got to bring her into the boat, so we have to secure her jaws. I'm going to tie a knot around her jaws. Okay. Hold on, watch yourself. Now she can't bite us. We've still got to be careful because she can still swing her head. First of all, we need to get the harpoon head out. We need to get her mouth open. This is where we have to be a little bit careful. Hold this. Okay. Like that. Very, very hard to open her mouth when she doesn't want it. Okay, but that's fine. So this crocodile, she's about 2.5 meters, maybe a little bit more. Now, if she's going to go, you'll feel her. She's got so much strength there. I only need it to be open enough so I can get the probe in here. Right in there. And see what disgusting stuff I can get out. Ooh, look at that. You won't want to spread that on your toast, would you? No. Okay, I think we've got enough there. Right, you ready? Yeah. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay.
Every croc caught is measured, checked and tagged, allowing the croc catchers to learn how much it's growing and what its territory is the next time it's caught.
But it's healing very rapidly. Despite the bacteria that went into it, and despite the fact that she was sitting in all this horrible muddy water, no sign of any infection at all. Okay, let's turn her back again.
The samples collected tonight will be sent to the University of Adelaide, where researchers will publish advice on what bacteria are found and how best to treat them. Advice that will eventually save lives and shorten patient recovery times.
Excellent.
Ahead on Australia's deadliest destinations, the snakes of Central Australia.
It looks like you could just pick it up and put it in your top pocket, doesn't it?
Not a good idea.
The harsh, arid landscapes of Australia's central deserts are confronting. Surely no man or creature could survive these extremes. Yet wildlife survives and thrives here. In this ancient wilderness dwell over 90 species of snakes, some of them the deadliest on the continent. They're a challenge to anyone who cares to handle them.
Now this beautiful creature is a wormer python. And while she won't kill me if she does bite me, she does like feasting on other snakes that are venomous. Venomous snakes like the king brown, the death adder and the inland taipan. That snake alone carries enough venom to kill several hundred men.
Yeah, Tim, I'll be there shortly. I'm just heading off now, mate.
One man who defies death every day in Australia's centre is Rex Nangdor.
Let's go and see what we've got.
When deadly snakes penetrate the family home out here, Rex the snake wrangler is summoned to catch them. Such is his love of snakes that Rex refuses to destroy them. Instead, he releases them back into the desert.
So Rex, this is a beautiful...
Oh, he's a stunning animal. You can see the beautiful sheen on him when he's in the sun there. Absolutely gorgeous snake to look at.
You don't seem frightened at all.
No, he's doing his own thing. He's got no interest in us at all. He's following a scent trail.
He would normally catch, what, small rodents, lizards?
Oh, big rodents. They're a big rodent feeder. These rats are looking at up to almost a foot long. As you can see, these cracks in the ground, up into quite large, deep cracks. Of course, he goes down the burrow and whammo. When they bite, they just simply just strike and let go. And the venom is so potent, they just need to get a tiny nick in and that's it. He doesn't want to grab hold of a rat because the rat could tear him to pieces. Doesn't take long for a plains rat to die from one of these things.
They're called the inland taipan, which would suggest that you'd find them inland Australia.
Certainly are, yeah. Bottom of Queensland, top of South Australia, into Northern Territory. They live where people really don't live, so not many people actually get to see them.
So if this guy managed to nip you right now, what would the reaction be?
Oh, you'd only have to get a fraction of a milligram out of one of these things and you'd be dead as a doornail. He holds enough venom in there to kill 240,000 mice, which should equate to about several hundred people. It's the most lethal snake in the world.
Here you are, standing here telling me how lethal this creature is, and yet he's very, very close to your hand and body.
Oh yeah, he's quite happy there. He's running around, he's doing his own thing. He has no real intention of coming anywhere close to me.
He's not going to come too close to me.
Yeah, you just hold a snake nice and gentle and he'll be fine.
So why isn't he striking you?
Snakes don't really like striking, it's a waste of their venom. They prefer to keep their venom for their food, so they really don't like using and wasting their venom.
Another deadly snake that Rex is trying to find is the small but very camouflaged death adder.
Greg, we've been going for a little while now. These death adders, you can see, are really, really hard to find. What we're looking for is we're going around this side of these sort of rocks here. Anywhere we've got these sort of things on the edge of a rocky cliff face, really, really good area for them. They're not going to come out, we're going to have to go and find them. So any of these little tufts here, these are great. Really, really nice. Look at that. Let's be a little bit careful here. Here we go. I've just seen a tiny bit of a tail tip hanging out. There we go, look at that.
Camouflaged so beautifully, eh?
Isn't that amazing? All I could see was that tiny little piece hanging out back there. The tail's right next to this rock.
All right, and how venomous is this guy?
Well, these are one of the most venomous snakes in the world, certainly in the top 10. Their venom's very, very potent. They're really, really small compared to other death adders. The southern ones and the northern ones tend to be a lot bigger. And even though this one is small, it definitely packs a punch.
You get bitten by this. It's called the death adder. It causes death.
Certainly does. Highly neurotoxic. Basically, they've only got one neurotoxin, but it works very, very fast and interrupts your nervous system and, of course, leads to death.
He's looking very docile there. What's he doing? Sleeping or waiting for something to attack him?
Well, because we found him in daylight, he probably wouldn't want to be doing that much at the moment, especially today's going to be about 35 degrees. I'll see if we can move this thing out without disturbing it too much. Ooh. See what's happening there? Soon we touch it, they're flattening out. That's a real angry thing there. That's saying, keep away from me, they're flattening right out. Out comes this death adder nice and slowly. You watch this tail. It'll go down to almost nothing. So got a nice thick body, tapers down to a tiniest little tail. See the black tip? So she'll wiggle out in front of her nose, do a little wiggle, looks like an insect. Animal comes towards it, thinking it's an insect, and then bang. Very, very quick at striking.
It's hard to believe it's deadly, but it looks like you could just pick it up and put it in your top pocket, doesn't it?
Not a good idea.
Still to come, a deadly snake strikes out. Of all the snakes Rex will handle today, the aggressive King Brown is full of more venom than any other Australian snake.
They don't like people too much, so if I move near him, he doesn't like movement. See the neck flattening out? He doesn't like it at all. He wants to be left alone. But if I stay nice and still, you see he goes straight past me. So if you've got a snake close to you, you stand really still, wait till they move away from you. Very simple idea.
How lethal is this guy?
These guys hold more venom than any other snake in Australia. So he could potentially hold, 300 or 400 milligrams of venom. So when these guys bite, they chew into the bite. Lots of venom comes out. If you're bitten by one of these, hurts like hell because they're breaking muscle tissue down.
Now, you were showing me close to boot there. You were saying he sometimes strikes your boot?
Definitely, especially with my shoes, because where I work, of course, I'm dealing with mice and rats all the time, and occasionally I've got a bit of mouse smell on my shoe. And the old snake will wander past, and it might look like a shoe, but if it smells like a mouse, it's a mouse. So they'll have a good go at your shoe. A couple of days ago, we just had a dog bitten in town and died within about half an hour. And the worst thing about dogs is they get their nose right up close to them, just like I've done here. The snake will get a bit of a fright and have a bit of a nip on the nose, and it's because it's so close to the brain, they can die very quickly. Little fella. Right on the nose.
There's not too many people in the world that would let a venomous snake touch their nose. Why are you doing that?
Oh, basically he's only having a smell. As long as I don't smell like a mouse, I should be pretty okay.
You're not frightened at all, are you?
No. Now, if you smell like a mouse, then you've got big problems, but as long as you don't, you're pretty well fine. I mean, I do this because I'm used to handling a snake, but any person outside, you just wouldn't do it because you're going to flinch, and as soon as you flinch, they'll strike at you. Go away, fly.
What happens next was never meant to happen.
You okay?
Hope so.
What happened then?
Oh, he had to go up my nose. Just open that bag up.
Has he got you? Did he get you?
Oh, I hope not.
Well, seriously, let's get the snake in there and look at that nose of yours.
No blood?
No, it seems like you're okay, mate. I mean, that was pretty damn close. You okay?
Oh, I've gone back and have a look in the car first.
That strike could kill Rex, but he remains calm.
Oh, we'll see how things go. I feel okay at the moment, but let's have a look.
Just one minute amount of venom could be fatal.
There's a very slight nick. There's a little slight nick under there, but hopefully it's just a dry bite.
A dry bite would mean no venom was injected.
This is quite serious, Rex. You've been bitten.
No need to head to the hospital, he decides, but rather time to release his attacker.
Okay, we'll just go and release this thing.
Rex has been remarkably fortunate. The snake failed to inject venom.
Okay, mate. I mean, that was pretty damn close.
Rex survived an attack by the most poison-laden of all Australian snakes. He did his job instead and saved them. Today, the King Brown returns to its desert kingdom. When next we reveal Australia's deadliest destinations,
it's pointless, it's too hot.
The rogues of the rainforest, giant birds that have killed before.
Move back.
Got about halfway back to the shore.
What happens when lightning surges through a terrified yachtsman?
Next thing I knew, I was in the water.
And the most vicious of animals on the attack. On land and in the sea.
Came straight up, and next thing the shark's jaws were wrapped around the side of the boat,